On the 20th of May 685, a fierce battle is recorded as having taken place at a location named Dun-Nectane, somewhere in modern-day Scotland. On the one side stood the powerful King Edgefrith of Northumbria, overlord over much of northern Britain at the time. He had travelled north, apparently against the advice of his advisors, to put down some of the rebellious subject peoples who he and his predecessors had won hegemony over in the previous decades. Despite rebellions in recent years, the Northumbrian position in the north was still strong, and they arguably stood on the brink of dominating Britain entirely. The subject people in question who Edgefrith fought against on that day were no ordinary enemy. They were the Picts, an ancient Brythonic people likely descended from the very same tribes who had fought off the Romans many centuries before. For time immemorial, they had called the mountainous forests and valleys of modern-day Scotland home. And now, under King Bridei mac Bili, a powerful ruler, although not the only Pictish king, they had finally seized the opportunity to shake off the Anglo-Saxon influence from the south once and for all. Although information is exceptionally hard to come by during this period, let alone information specifically relating to the elusive inhabitants of Pictland, it seems that Bridei had been born sometime during the beginning of the 7th century, no later than the year 628. He was the son of Bili, a king of the Brythonic kingdom of Outclud, generally referred to as Strathclyde, which existed on the border region between the Saxon south and the Celtic north. He was a well-connected monarch during this period, and his wife seems to have been of Northumbrian nobility. Nevertheless, as the century came towards its end, Northumbrian power gradually began to waver in the face of rebellious northern rulers who resented having to pay homage to the south. Bridei was able to claim his throne through his paternal grandfather, Nectane, who had apparently ruled from 595 until 616, and may have also ruled over Outclud, suggesting a close link between the two areas during this period. Although the Picts did not generally have a single king during this time, arranging themselves instead into several tribal groups, Bridei seems to have come to his throne in around 672, and by 680 had established himself as an expansionary ruler, possibly enjoying some sort of overlordship over other Pictish kings. In 680 he attacked the fortress of Dunatar, and 2 years later he campaigned against the inhabitants of the Orkney Islands, an independent sub-kingdom at the time. The campaign was apparently so violent, according to the Annals of Ulster, that the Orkneys were destroyed by the invasion. During the following year, in 683, Pictland came under attack from the east by the kingdom of Dalriata, itself a powerful and fairly mysterious Gaelic state which had straddled both sides of the sea between modern-day Northern Ireland and Scotland for at least 200 years. A seafaring people, possibly originating in Ireland, whose realm encompassed all of the Western Isles of modern-day Scotland and large areas of the mainland. Dalriata also had its fair share of battles with Northumbria over the years, but possibly now felt threatened by the newfound power of the Picts. In 683, a raiding party, apparently led by the current king of Dalriata, ventured deep into Pictland to attack the hull fort of Dundurn, one of Bridei's major bases of power. The attack failed, and a subsequent retaliatory raid is recorded as having been undertaken at Dunad, the capital of Dalriada. Whilst the outcome of the attack is unclear, the presence of Pictish-style carving at Dunad during this time may suggest at least some level of conquest or occupation by the Picts. For around 50 years or so up until this period, Northumbria had generally been considered to be the most powerful state in the north of Britain, at times claiming at least some sort of hegemony over the kingdoms of Dalriata, Pictland, Outclud, Mercia, and even the Isle of Man and areas of Wales. One interpretation of the activities of Bridei during this period is that he was attempting to increase his own power with the eventual end goal of throwing off the Northumbrian yoke once and for all. Bridei's territorial ambitions apparently harked back to his wish to reclaim lands in southern Pictland, which had once been held by his grandfather Nectane, and subsequently been lost to the Anglo-Saxons close to a century earlier. When Edgefrith, king of Northumbria, heard of the Pictish raids into lands now settled by his own people, he marched north to do battle against the Picts. According to Nennius, the two kings were actually related, likely due to a diplomatic marriage between their families, which actually made them first cousins. Nonetheless, this relation would mean very little in the coming battle. No quarter would be given. Although little is known about the battle itself, it seems that a feigned retreat by the Picts successfully drew Edgefrith and his men into a trap at a place named Dunnechtane. There they were ambushed by battle-hardened Pictish warriors who knew the territory well and flooded out of the wooded hills to surround and destroy the Northumbrian force. Edgefrith was killed in the fighting, and according to Bede, any Northumbrians who did not flee Pictish territory were either killed or enslaved. According to many scholars, the Battle of Dunnechtane marks the very point in which Pictish independence from Northumbria was permanently secured. In the aftermath of the battle, Northumbria's power over the north was permanently damaged, and in the years following, the Picts recovered their southern lands which had previously been conquered from the south, whilst they also continued to make more advancements against Dalriata. In the centuries following the battle, the Picts and the inhabitants of Dalriata would eventually coalesce into one people to a certain extent, thus forming the basis of what would later become the people of Scotland.